All right. So today I wanted to cover stuff in the MLS. Okay, so different things that we're seeing in the MLS and different challenges that you can have dealing with the MLS, getting your listings on. We'll start with the effective date. There's a lot of confusion with the effective date because in the past, the effective date would mess with your days on market. And we had to make certain adjustments in the effective date to make sure that on the day that we wanted to start marketing it, it was effective. But a lot of that has changed, but still some of the old habits that we have are still there. So the one thing, I'm going to share my screen. All right, so I'm going to share this. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. So here's just the MLS. It's got the exclusive right to sell. Biggest thing that we have to look at here is for the effective date. Effective date starts right here. This agreement is effective as of the date it is signed by all parties ending at 5 p.m. on this date that you put right here. Okay, so it's effective once all parties have signed. So if you look down here at the bottom of this contract, there's really three signatures. There's the seller signatures here, and then seller's agent signatures here. So as soon as this is signed is the effective date. So where we're getting a lot of confusion is when we are doing the exclusive right to sell and we're doing the listing input form, and then when we're actually putting it on the MLS. So there's three different dates that you're putting in. They all should be the same date when it's all said and done. So what we're seeing is a combination of a couple of different things. One is the input form. You write it in as the day you've created it. Then your client signs the exclusive right to sell, maybe a day or two later, or your client signs it on that date, but you don't sign it until a couple days later. So that creates a problem between the input form and the exclusive right to sell. So at that point, we're going to have to make do an addendum to fix that. The other one we're seeing is that the exclusive right to sell says one date and the MLS input says one date. But now that we're putting it on the MLS, we're doing it all in the computer. So all of that paperwork is really just for our records in our files, but you're actually inputting all of that into the MLS. And there's a date there that says effective date. So you want to make sure that that date that you're putting in the MLS is the date that you're wanting to be effective. Because once it's actually in the MLS, going back and trying to fix it, we have to fix it in our paperwork and we can't fix it on the MLS. So the MLS kind of has it set where once you've entered in that date, you'll enter in the date, then right before you publish it, it's going to reconfirm price, effective date, all of that stuff is going to reconfirm. So once you confirm that, if that doesn't match up with what your MLS input says and it doesn't match up with your exclusive right to sell, then it's going to be flagged with the office. You're going to have to do an addendum to fix that. So just be aware of that. And the reason for that is there's I'll show you some of that, but there's some rules. If we come in here to this listing procedures, this is the MLS rules. The MLS rules that we have has requirements for us to start marketing or at least have it on the MLS by a certain date. So if we take a listing and as soon as it's an effective listing, we have 5 business days to get this listing on the MLS or do an exclusion form. So there's 2 different dates that I want you to keep in mind. One is this 5 days. So if I take a listing today, and we're talking about business days, so we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We've got till Friday next week to make sure that we're on the market. Now, this doesn't mean that we can go out and market the property. We can put it on the MLS. We can call all our investors. We can do all what we're trying to do. This just is saying that you have to have it on the MLS if you have an effective listing. And I'll show you where you can do the exception to that. If you do start marketing it, let's say you decide you're going to put your for sale sign up in the yard. Now we're going under the clear cooperation rules, which says as soon as you are actively marketing your property, you have 24 hours to have it on the MLS. So if I sign the listing today and then over the weekend I decide that I'm going to put a my for sale sign up, I've got to have that on the MLS within 24 hours. I don't have until next Friday to make sure that's on the MLS. It needs to be on the MLS. It needs to be on the MLS when it's being marketed. Any questions about those? Okay, so the effective date really is we're seeing that because I feel like either we're putting the wrong dates on there and then our clients aren't signing them fast enough, or you as an agent's not signing them fast enough. But just before you publish it to the MLS, make sure the date that you put on there is the date that is in your exclusive right to sell and it's in the MLS input, and they're all the same before you actually put it on the MLS. That would save you a whole lot of problems, and as an office we won't have to keep flagging it. So that's basically on the effective date. Some of the questions I get with the effective date, well, actually, before we go into the days on market, let's say that we take a listing today and it's effective today, but I don't want it to be on the MLS marketing it for longer than the 5 days. I want to make sure that my client has a couple weeks to get things fixed or whatever it needs to be. I'm going to come into my MLS. You go into the front page of the MLS, there's this button right here in the top called Forms. It's going to say MLS Forms. If I click on the MLS Forms, it's going to come up with some options. The option I'm looking for is the top left corner, MLS Listing Input. I'm going to click on that, and then it's going to give me this MLS Listing Exclusion Notice. I'm going to have to fill out all the things that have little red dots. So property address, effective date of the listing. So the effective date, we just talked about that. That's the date that everybody gets it signed and it's ready to go. As far as the contract is, might not be ready to go on the market. That's the listing date. Expiration date, you should have that established because it's in the exclusive right to sell. Listing agent, that's going to be you there. If there's a co-agent, that's not a red dot. So if you don't have a co-agent, doesn't matter. Century 21's office. And then seller's instructions. Okay, there's 3 options here. Option number 1, do not submit the property to the MLS until submission date below. So if I click on this button, it's going to give me an option to have a specific date. So if my client says, I want it to go active on September 1st, you can sign the effective date today, so you have an effective listing so that nobody else can take that from you. You do have a contract, but I don't want to market it. I don't want to do anything until September 1st, which clearly is over 5 days from now. So if they're saying a specific date, I might click on this one and put September 1st there. Second option, do not submit property to the MLS until listing is publicly marketed. Okay, this basically means that I'm not going to put it on the MLS until I'm ready to market the property. I'm going to put a sign up. I'm going to start talking to people about it. And that doesn't have to be a specific date. It just says when I start marketing the property, I'm going to put it on the MLS within the 24 hours. And then the last one is do not submit the property to the MLS while this listing agreement for the property is in effect. So let's just say that your seller says, I don't even want it on the MLS. You're going to put that, don't submit it to the MLS. This could be used in a scenario where you already have a buyer that's already buying the property. The seller wants you to market, or not market the property, but they want you to represent them. So I'm going to have a signed MLS exclusive right to sell, but I'm not putting it on the MLS as far as marketing it. That's where this scenario would take place, where I could put that on there. So in this particular case, those are your 3 options, but you have to submit that within the 5 days of your signing of the effective date of your exclusive right to sell. You've got to submit that because they're going to expect from the date that you have an effective, within 5 days, you have to either have it on the MLS or an exclusion from the MLS. Otherwise, you can get fined for that. Personally, I like to use this second option. Don't submit to the MLS until the listing is publicly marketed. The only reason I don't like, I like this one other than the other two is the other two options, you have to actually do something to make sure that it's on the MLS. If you're submitting it on a specific date and then they're not ready on that date, or they want to go some earlier than that date, you have to do an addendum to fix that. On the last one, if they say they don't want it on the MLS, they say they don't want it on the MLS, you can't put it on the MLS without them giving you permission to put it on the MLS. So you'd have to do an addendum there too. So really, I like this one, even if I'm doing the option where I don't think it's going to go on the MLS. If by chance it does, as soon as I start marketing it, I'll put on the MLS, is basically what it's saying. So any questions on this form?
Yeah, Jason.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that form change the effective date, or does the effective date stay the same?
The effective date stays the same. This form
So-
doesn't change.
So it'll still match the data form and the listing agreement,
Yes. Yeah.
no matter what you do on that form. Okay.
Yeah, that's the date you want to put in there. I think that some agents are hesitant to define the effective date because of the way it used to be, where we, even in our contracts, we would make it effective as soon as we started marketing it. Well, now it really came down to the days on the market is really what was the biggest concern. Is nobody wanted to say, oh, I'm gonna list it September 1st. It's effective today, and the day I go on the market, I'm going to have 15 days of days on the market. I never even marketed it, which would not be a good thing for us, which clearly is what it used to be. And that's why we had to mess with that effective date. Well, now we don't have that same problem, because if you look right here, this is days on market. The days on market calculate for a specific property based on the tax identification number, and can carry out subsequent listings for the same property. Days on market are calculated as follows. So days on market accumulate or increase when the active listing is in, or when the increase when a listing is active or in backup status. So the only way those numbers start clicking up now is if it's in active or it's in backup status. Well, you cannot have an exclusion and have it active, and you cannot have it withdrawn or active no-show. It won't accumulate these days on market. So the problem we had in the past where we didn't want to make it effective, that's gone away. Now we can make it effective on the day you want to start working with them. So if I go out to a listing appointment today and they say, I don't want to list it until September 1st, I don't have to wait until September 1st to sign my contracts. I can sign my contracts now. I just need to make sure I do the exclusions so that I'm in compliance with the MLS. And then as soon as I put active, day one will come up on our MLS. Days on market pause when the listing is an active no-show. So let's say that you have your home on the market. Your client calls up and says, hey, I'm going out of town for 2 weeks. I really don't want any marketing it. I don't want anybody here. I don't want you to do anything. Instead of completely canceling your contract, you could do an active no-show, which says nobody can come look at the property and the days on market stop, so that it doesn't accumulate while your client is out of town or not wanting to show it or whatever they want to do. The other one is withdrawn. So if it's a withdrawn contract, that means there's an actual exclusive right to sell that's in place, but it's not going to be on the MLS right now. Okay. Or under contract status, that pauses it as well. Okay. The only way you can zero this out, the days on market, is if the property is not listed on the MLS for 30 consecutive days. So you have to pull it off the MLS for 30 days. So that will reset it to 0 if the property is listed with a new brokerage. So if it expired with another brokerage yesterday and you list it today, it's going to start over at 0. Property incurs a change in ownership. Don't see that one as often. And then in this case, this is a new construction. Days will start at 0 once the construction is complete, so that you can take advantage of that. So if it takes you 9 months to build the home, it's not going to show that you're been on the market for that long, even though you could still be marketing it during that time. Once it's active, it's going from there. So that kind of eliminates that problem with the effective date. So the way that I want you to look at this effective date is the day that I'm actually going to have everybody sign that contract is the date that I want the MLS input form, that I'm going to put it on the MLS as that effective date, and the exclusion is going to have that effective date. That date should always be the same on every single one of them. If you notice that it's not the same, the office is going to notice, and you're going to have to do an addendum to fix it. So the reason that we bring it up, one, is because we don't want confusion in the office, but two is the MLS has a nice fine policy that I just wanted to remind you guys of. There's 5 different tiers, and depending on the violation, it's going to tell you how much money each violation is. Tier 1 is the lowest. This is just incomplete or inaccurate information. We see that on the MLS a lot. Inaccurate status. Okay, this is what I had an agent call up the other day. They had an active time clause under contract, but they wanted to continue marketing it. And we all know that if it says active time clause on there, that a lot of agents kind of don't show that as often. So he wanted to just leave it active, and if somebody said something, he would change it. The reality is this is the fine that you could get, and I'll show you how it kind of escalates. But really, what it is you have to be able to correct it within 3 days. So this isn't like an automatic, oh, I made a mistake. It's you're going to be notified, and then once you're notified, you got to get that fixed within 3 days. And you guys all have access to your MLS fixing those. So there should be no reason you can't go in and fix that as soon as you get notified. Typically, it happens when either someone just doesn't care about it, and then you can get fined. Tier 2, exclusive office listing requirements. Okay, this is that that's not filling out the exclusion form, duplicating your listings. So putting it on twice with changing a few things, but it's really the same listing. That fine is a $100 fine. Tier 3, late entry of listing. Okay, so I didn't put it in the 5 days. That's a $250 fine for that. Tier 4, clear cooperation and marketing. This is the one that's I started marketing my property, but it's not on the MLS. I got that's a bigger fine, $500 fine for that. Tier 5, this one I'm entering a listing without a listing agreement. Unfortunately, there's a few times where we've gone through our listing agreements and we have it on the MLS, but we don't have an exclusive right to sell. We don't have any documentations. We don't have anything from the office, but it's already on the MLS. So this is one that unfortunately we've seen more times than I'd like to admit. This is a $1,000 fine for the first offense, $2,500 for the second offense, $5,000 for and a suspension. So don't do that. Get your proper paperwork done, get everything in. That's one of the reasons why we're checking them and giving you notes to just go back and make sure it's filled out. It's the same with not writing a buyer's agreement. It's a pretty big fine for that. The other thing on this is if you continue to violate them, habitual violations, all the fines can go up by 250, fourth one 500, 5,000, 6 plus 2,000, and a total fines for a calendar year, you can be fined up to $15,000. So it's kind of a big deal. I mean, they're not really hard things to do. Anytime you call and ask, we can help you navigate this, but it really just comes down to making sure that everything is matching up. And I think sometimes we get a little bit casual with just being like, oh, today's the date, I'm going to put it in there. Just take a second before you publish your MLS that you've got everything set, because we can avoid some of these fines that we have here by just maybe doing a quick addendum before you put on the MLS that says, hey, effective date is now this date, so you're within those 5 days. But as soon as you put it on the MLS and it makes our paperwork wrong, we kind of are in a touchy situation where you kind of got to go back and fix something you already did. So if that makes sense. All right, any questions on anything we talked about today? Effective date, days on market, fines. We talked about the correct status. Let's see, there was something in the chat. Let's just see. Why we make the tags? Yeah, so Brianna just said in the chat, this is why we make the tags requests when processing listing. It's not about chastising our agents. Yeah, don't get mad at the back office. Brianna, Julie, they do a fantastic job of helping. They're trying to help you stay away from fines. And there has been times where we've dealt with agents that we said, well, let's just let them get fined then if they don't want to listen. So they're not trying to be mean. All those notes on the and tags on in your dot loop, don't look at it as I failed. Look at it as this is my checklist to make sure things are done and I get paid on time. So thanks, Brianna, for that. Julie, you guys are awesome helping us get that done. So any questions? Okay. Well, I hope that helped for you today. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out. We'll help you when we can. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.